This film is intended to help you to assess and understand the practical conservation treatments necessary to conserve carved inscriptions on stone war memorials. It's aimed at those who are involved in technical decisions and undertaking the practical work, carrying it out or commissioning it. This includes stonemasons, conservators, architects, surveyors, conservation officers, and anyone involved in the technical and practical aspects of war memorial conservation. It forms part of a suite of films which cover different aspects of caring for and repairing war memorials that are available on the Historic England YouTube channel and Historic England publications. The significance of inscriptions on war memorials are of paramount importance, and therefore it's crucial that they're legible. Legibility can vary from letter to letter, name to name, within a single face and on different faces of a war memorial. It's essential that the level of legibility is considered so that the need for any treatment can be established. All materials, including stone, decay, especially when subject to prolonged exposure to weather. The rate of deterioration of a memorial will vary according to the materials and method of construction, the degree of exposure, and the prevailing environment. Many memorials are multifaceted. Erosion will vary across the surface, so it can be difficult to treat without looking at the overall integrity.
Looking at it now, after assessing it, there's certainly elements that do need refreshing, and I think it's my opinion that to refresh is better than to lose it. Just to redress it, clean it. Now, once we've got it clean as well, it's easier to monitor and maintain that as well. What was happening under the lichen, it was difficult to see how much erosion was going on. At least now we've got it to a clean structure. Even if it's not now, they decide to go ahead with lettering, at least you can monitor it and you can see how the behaviour of the stone's going down the lines.
It's often necessary to accept some loss of unity between different faces and areas of exposure. The condition of the stone will help determine any conservation treatments. Friable stone is very difficult to treat. Consolidation treatments to preserve the stone can often cause further problems and are rarely a suitable solution. It's important to assess and record the condition of a war memorial with particular attention to the inscriptions. Surveying should be undertaken on an annual basis and taking photographs to compare any changes. A visual and tactile approach is also essential, feeling for friable material, tapping for sound of lamination. The style, font and execution should be noted. Raking light and spraying lightly with water can help distinguish the lettering. Taking a rubbing of the lettering is a quick way to record the inscriptions. Each memorial needs to be assessed in its own right. The Historic England publication on the conservation, repair and management of war memorials includes a pro forma condition report. Can all the inscription be read? What's the condition of the stone and the inscriptions? Are there any specific reasons for any deterioration? Is there anything that can be done to alleviate any deterioration? What's the condition of the lettering? Very good. All the letters are sharp and the inscriptions are legible. Good. The letters may be weathered, but the inscriptions are clearly legible. Fair. A few letters, a name or particular areas are weathered, eroded and difficult to read, but overall the inscription is still legible. In painting or gilding may have been significantly lost. Poor. The stone is decaying with much or all of the inscription illegible or completely lost. Once the condition of the inscriptions has been determined, the conservation should be considered and the range of options for any treatment can be examined. There may be several options for conservation treatment, and these should be weighed up and discussed with a custodian, the statutory authorities and any other parties to decide on the appropriate way forward. This should help the most appropriate approach to be resolved and expectations managed. You should draw up a method statement which outlines how the selected conservation treatment will be undertaken. This should include the processes, techniques, equipment and materials. All war memorials are important, but some are designated, which gives them additional protection. Any works carried out to a war memorial should adhere to the conservation principles of minimum intervention, only undertaking works that really need to be done, and retention of original fabric, removing as little of the original memorial as possible. A step-by-step approach should be taken to make sure conservation decisions and any interventions are appropriate. Most war memorials not only have historic significance, but also great significance to the local community, and so should look cared for, not as new. Let's look at some of the practical conservation treatments. In some cases, cleaning can make the inscriptions more legible. If soiling or biological growth is obscuring the lettering, then gentle cleaning may increase the legibility sufficiently. This should always be the first stage, and subsequent decisions only made after this has been completed. War memorials should only be cleaned if the soiling is causing harm or rendering the inscriptions illegible, not simply to make it look like new. Frequent cleaning of a war memorial can lead to the surface resoiling more quickly, and so consideration should be given to how frequently cleaning should be carried out. The gentlest cleaning option should be used to remove damaging soiling and improve legibility of inscriptions. Cleaning also allows other repair work to be carried out. Cleaning with water using a natural or nylon bristle brush, not metallic, can be a very effective option. It's easy and cheap, but washing is a highly controllable method to sensitively clean lettering. Here, careful cleaning has revealed the remains of gilding that wasn't originally evident. Steam cleaning by experienced practitioners provides a relatively quick option, but it's less controllable and can result in an over-cleaned surface. Other cleaning methods, such as wet and dry air abrasives or chemical cleaning methods, can be used in exceptional circumstances, when more gentle methods are not effective. But the risk of causing further damage during this process needs to be prevented. Further details on these cleaning methods can be found in Historic England's publication, The Conservation, Repair and Management of War Memorials. In-painting is another option to improve legibility. It's an option that should be considered in preference to sharpening or recutting the inscriptions, since this treatment is reversible and retreatable. It must be carried out with due regard to the surface, the style of lettering, and any original paint colour. In some cases, it may be necessary to take a small sample of the original paint to establish the original paint type and colour. The lettering may have been repainted, and so the surface colour may not always be the same as the original. Some original paints may contain lead, so awareness of this is essential, so necessary health and safety precautions can be taken. Let's see how this is done. The paint should be applied very carefully so it doesn't bleed or smudge beyond the edges of the letters. This takes patience and an experienced hand. Acrylic, potassium silicate, oil or enamel may be chosen, depending on the stone type, condition and exposure. It isn't always necessary to in-paint the whole inscription, but to touch in certain areas to make the inscription more legible. More than one coat of paint is often necessary, and each coat needs to dry before the next is applied. A clay barrier is sometimes applied on sandstone, limestone and marble. This will stop any paint leaching into the stone. Since this is water soluble, it can be carefully removed afterwards. Regilding may be needed. Let's have a look at how this can be addressed. This is an example on polished granite. First, apply the base coat, which may match the colour of the stone. This helps to fill any pores or pits in the stone, smoothing any unevenness. Now apply gilding size or signwriter's enamel. When the paint is tacky, you can apply the gold leaf, which should be at least 23 1/3 carat quality. Gold paint should not be used. It weathers differently and doesn't last as long. When dry, excess gold leaf can be carefully removed to leave it only within the incised letters. On hard, polished or honed granite, the excess paint can be carefully scraped away with a window scraper. So, if cleaning hasn't made the inscription more legible and in-painting isn't feasible, what options do you have to improve the legibility? It's tempting to go for complete reinstatement to produce a pristine and new inscription. But there are good conservation reasons why this isn't always the best or most appropriate option. Inscriptions can only be recut a finite number of times, so it's important to fully consider this, and recutting should only be undertaken when absolutely necessary as a last resort. Decisions about recutting need to consider the longer-term survival of the memorial into the future, not just how it looks today. Let's hear a letter cutter talking about the options for resharpening and recutting letters on a war memorial.
When the face of the memorial is beyond saving and the inscription needs to be recarved, you need to gather as much information as possible, looking at new photographs, sourcing old photographs, or gathering information from local archivists. When preparing the face of the memorial, you need to work back the face using a fine abrasive, removing as little of the surface of the stone as possible. The reason why this needs to be done is that it's impossible to carve a clean-cut letter on a weathered face of a memorial. Once the surface has been taken back to a sound piece of stone, you have to start the setting out process. This consists of consulting all the records, trying to get the layout as close to the original as possible. We then apply a clay barrier. It's most important to recreate the inscription the way it was originally carved, staying loyal to the font, style and execution. This is where the skills of an experienced letter cutter comes into play. He or she can faithfully reproduce the way this inscription was carved from scratch using a V-cut.
If sharpening or recutting are options, what are the guiding conservation principles? Firstly, the original style must be reproduced, so the reinstated inscription should stay authentic to the original design and execution. The minimum amount of sharpening or recutting should be undertaken to make the inscription legible. It may not be necessary to recut the entire inscription, but certain letters can be sharpened and deepened to make the inscription more legible. This must always be done by an experienced letter cutter, and it's essential to ask for a sample of their conservation work to ensure they're competent to execute the carving to the required standard. Since original inscriptions will have been cut by hand, pneumatic and abrasive power tools such as sandblasting are inappropriate. Repairing inscriptions carved in relief is very difficult to achieve because the background needs to be rebated. Cleaning is often very effective. Replacing the original inscription with completely new stonework is the most invasive option and should only be considered if there's no other alternative. Indeed, it may be that cutting out one area will cause damage to other areas, and it would be better to let weathering take its course and record the names elsewhere. If new stonework is a solution, then the replacement stone should match the original, like for like. Availability can be an issue, as many quarries are now closed. If it's no longer available, another suitable alternative will have to be sourced. It's not advisable to introduce materials that would not have been there originally, such as granite to a limestone memorial, which are very different to the original design and may cause differential deterioration. So, do archival research to identify the original stone. This may need a specialist, such as a geologist, to identify the original stone source and propose a suitable one for replacement. The Strategic Stone Study website may provide useful to help with this. Don't settle for a stone that just looks like the original. It may weather differently and could cause further damage to the original stonework. Again, the inscription should be drawn and cut by hand in the style that the original inscriptions were created. Plaques of other materials should not be placed on top of or instead of illegible inscriptions. This can lead to physical or chemical problems as the new material interacts with the old and traps moisture, which can accelerate deterioration, causing new problems. This is also a change to the original design of the memorial and doesn't follow the design chosen by those who erected it. So locating new signage should be adjacent to the memorial, not physically attached to it. With these points in mind, it's possible to commission and produce excellent conservation work which will stand the test of time, offer value for money, and respect all the war memorial represents for future generations. To watch more films on caring for and conserving war memorials, please visit our YouTube channel, and to access our help sheets and documents, please visit the Historic England website.